But I mean, I've got Elite Dangerous and I've got No Man's Sky, which fit two different space itches pretty well.
Sure.
And then we've got settings of games like Warhammer 40K that take place in space.
Sure.
And the future, and it's like,
I think,
what are you gonna do? What are you doing to compete with those?
I think that it's more that they're trying to compete with something like a Mass Effect.
I didn't like Mass Effect, so not hard.
Yeah, without the cover-based part.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, which is why I'm thinking that probably something like an Inquisitive model would have made more sense for that, where you're good at perception and stuff.
Or maybe you're an archaeologist who also likes to raise the dead.
At which point you'd probably want to be maybe a cleric.
Right. Maybe you are a cleric who is also a paleontologist.
Yeah.
So you research them and you animate the skeleton.
Actually, even in that regard, I'll tell you that I will always say I love Nier Automata, but I don't know if I want to go back to Nier Automata now that I've finished it. Like, I don't know if I want to run through that storyline again, because it felt so satisfying to come to the conclusion of that.
Right.
Alex, how many E's do you prefer to have in your name?
Well, there is one
There's
in
one.
my name.
Yeah.
And one in two in EXP Limited. So, one or two.
I technically have none.
This is true.
Oh, unless you use my middle name, then there's two. But
I don't think I know your middle name.
Frederick.
Oh, never mind. I forget your middle name on purpose.
Perfect. Anyway, everybody, thank you for joining us once again on Total Pebble Knockdown. My name is Nathan Frederick Ainsworth.
And I am Alex.
With the one
You're not
E.
getting my middle. You're not getting my middle name. And if you want my last name, you can look at other places for it.
That's absolutely right. And I can assure you that there's like no other E's in anything. I think.
No E's anywhere.
Anywhere.
E has emptied the building.
E has definitely emptied the building. Exit stage right.
Because left has an E in it.
Left has an E in it. Very good. Very good. We thought this through. I didn't, but I pretend that I will. First up on the show, we have a weekly muse. And speaking of E's, Alex, I don't know if you know, but we have to do a little bit of a eulogy today.
Eulogy also starts with E.
Yes, it does. So many E's. But E3, the Electronic Entertainment Expo, is basically dead, and it is not going to be around for 2022 at all. So, I'm sorry.
F in the chat. No E's in the chat, though.
No, press F to pay respect. Or press E.
E to pay respects.
E, yeah,
Three
press
times.
E 3 times. Yeah. Press E 3 times. So, a lot of people are probably going to be wondering, well, if you're not going to do E3, which is usually a big-time June affair for games, what are they going to do for all these game studios that want to release, information about their new games? And, boy, that's a good question. One of the big ones, of course, is like the PC games showcase, gaming show, PC gaming show, I should say, which is scheduled for this coming week when this releases, Sunday, June 12th.
So here's the question, Nathan. Do we have any solid, real information on why E3's not happening this year?
I have a little bit of information for you. IGN had an article for this back in March, and that's when they decided that it had been fully canceled. It had previously canceled the in-person event, so I guess they were planning on doing what they had done previously in other years, which was an actual in-person, or I should say a digital version of it, but it was indeed canceled. It does say that they will return, or at least it says that they plan to return with 2023 with a reinvigorated showcase.
Whoa.
What that means, I don't know.
They're gonna pump way too much money into it.
Yes. Now, see, the thing about it is that for the last few years before really the pandemic and everything happened, there had been a lot of discussion about whether E3 was kind of getting too big and lethargic, and that it wasn't making sense for a lot of game companies. Like, they had already seen a drop-off of some of the some of the different game companies that decided to just start doing their own thing. Which is why you started to see more like Nintendo Directs or the PC, State of Play, EA State of Play, all of those, because you're buying the booth and you're creating those big displays and everything in this big ostentatious way for something that you could just release on the fly at this point. Yeah. And there was the whole thing with like Keanu Reeves, and then they were like, well, now we got to have like all these big stars come out for all of these games, and then it's like, okay, but how big are we doing for the hype machine?
Yeah, I know like E3. BlizzCon usually has like a band or several bands that play.
Sure.
I don't remember who it was the last time, but like they do their whole big, it's Blizzard. They do their whole big event, all their games. I think they do some tournaments. They make a whole thing of it, and then they've got like bands. I think I don't remember, but they've had some pretty big name bands actually play there too. And it's like, okay, so they make a whole thing out of it.
Yeah. Well, after the breathtaking appearance that Keanu did for Cyberpunk,
he's breathtaking.
He is breathtaking. Accurate. But after they did that, there was a push. I remember that conversation. There was a big push about trying to get a lot more big names in and to have them up on the stage and to talk about the different games. And I think it was the commercial aspect of it was also about trying to get the hype train going, because that is very much E3 in a nutshell. I'm glad that eventually it will come back. I always had the thought that at some point, maybe, I'd actually go to an in-person E3 to see what it's about. That would be kind of one of the few expos I actually wanted to go to.
PAX. It's closer.
PAX is closer, yeah. But the thing that I also realized about E3 was, it's nice when the people get to go there and the gamers get to go there, but it's really not for them. It is really for, like, investors and the industrial, like the gaming, higher-ups anyway. They're really doing that to show their investors and people that are invested in their stocks the cool stuff that's coming out, and
people who don't actually care.
Yeah, they don't.
What's coming out with their games?
Yeah, so the gamers are really there to be in the audience and look at the pretty graphics and go, and say, hey, look, people are really excited about that. Look at this Fallout 76. There's gonna be a battle royale mode. Aren't you excited? It's like Fortnite, but you pay for it. It's that. But anyway, so the 2022 E3 event is gone. No digital, no nothing. 2023, large comeback and reinvigorated showcase, like a phoenix rising from the ashes.
Maybe it'll be gamer centric.
No, but thanks for playing our game. thanks for playing. Anywho, so the question really becomes, if they're not going to be doing E3, the game companies are used to, right around this time, talking about their upcoming stuff. They're still going to need to do something so that the investors know what's going on, and that gamers can hopefully get excited, and a bunch of streamers can freak the fuck out and make the hype train happen. Yeah. So you can have the dude like crying on the floor that they put Banjo-Kazooie into Smash Brothers, like that kind of thing. I understand. That guy was me. But the point is, there is actually a whole stream schedule for what is going on, and there are streams all the way from June 3rd through June 13th.
I'm sure you can put a graphic up on the screen in the video portion of this.
I will put it up for the entirety because I won't focus on all of them. But I can tell you that it really does start with like PlayStation State of Play and Sega, and that there is a few others. There's an IGN Expo. For some reason, Netflix has a Geeked Week.
Because they're trying to make Netflix a place for gaming, remember?
Yeah, I know.
We talked about this episodes ago.
Yeah, that's true. And then the ones that are at the very end of this list are like the Future Games Show, the PC Game Show, and then the Xbox Plus Bethesda Games Showcase. These are the ones that are actually coming out on like the 13th. Now, not a lot is really known about what they're going to be showing at this point. We do have an idea that at the PC Gaming Showcase there's supposed to be a couple unannounced games that are going to be revealed from Klee Entertainment and 11-Bit Studios.
Clay.
Klee? Yeah, Clay.
Clay. I think it's Clay.
Yeah. And
It's the people that make Don't Starve.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And 11-Bit Studios.
I don't know 11-Bit offhand.
Frostpunk.
Oh! They already announced Frostpunk 2 a while ago.
Oh, they did?
Is Frostpunk the one I'm thinking? Frostpunk's the...
Frostpunk is the one that's like the, it's the town builder, but it's in a very, very cold environment, and you have to keep everybody from freezing.
That.
I played a little bit of it, and I got angry at the game.
I played the entirety of the campaign.
Oh.
The first, like, the main story.
I applaud your resolve, because I got very upset with the game after a little bit.
Well, yeah, it gets progressively harder. Like, it's supposed to get progressively harder. It's like, no, it's getting colder.
Yeah, I for reasons I could not understand, like, ended up with an open revolt, and I'm like, I don't even know why you're revolting, guys. I've given you everything you... I'm working on it.
I don't remember if I played it on like an easy mode or something. I played 7.4 hours of it.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, I completed it and I was like, cool.
Yeah, it's something. And
interesting concept. I enjoyed it. It was definitely anyways, it was more cerebral because you had to be like, all right, well, do I want to like make everyone work overtime and try to keep them alive while killing them, or like, you know, it was a lot of decisions that you had to make. But then, like, I think somebody did a video on it that I saw that was like, yeah, the game is good, but then it's also that your decisions are pretty hollow at the end.
Yeah,
so it's whatever. Anyways, that's beside the point.
Yeah. There's also apparently going to be a little bit of update information about like Half-Life Alyx, Warhammer 40k, Space Marine 2. So a couple things to look out for.
They're making a second one.
Yeah, there's an update on that we're going to be getting more information about.
Who's doing Space Marine 2?
I believe Saber Interactive.
Oh, it's not THQ Nordic?
No, it's supposed to be an update provided by Tim Willits of Saber Interactive, who you would remember from id Software, so related to...
Okay. That's fine.
But anyway, as well as Bohemia Interactive, that's going to be doing Arma 3, which is the military sim shooter. And
great.
Yeah, I know you're super thrilled. And
DayZ 2.
Yeah, exactly. And Sam Barlow's Immortality, another one that was mentioned, which is a narrative mystery that has horror themes. Barlow's the one that did Her Story, another game I'm sure you didn't play.
No, I haven't played it, but I've seen
I know what it is.
Stuff about it. It's the full motion video and all that stuff.
There's a few FMV games that I've seen come out recently that I'm like, I'll play that at some point, maybe.
Yeah, they've had a resurgence in the last few years.
Telling Lies is another one that I was meaning to play at some point. That's an FMV. But
so yeah, I asked about Space Marine 2 because I played Space Marine, which was a pretty solid hack and slash shooter.
Yeah, it was an action game.
You know, yeah, it was pretty decent. THQ and Relic, I think, did it. And both of those studios are pretty much gone.
Fair. Yeah.
They overextended their reach, so.
Gee, did they?
Yeah, it was right after Space Marine had come out. They were like, let's invest in, I think it was maybe VR or something they were trying to get into. I don't really remember. and then their company just disintegrated.
Right.
But THQ Nordic is still around.
Oh yeah, no, THQ Nordic is still buying up properties left and right, so...
Yeah, anyways.
But we digress again from our digression.
Digressions and digressions.
Digressions and more digressions. It's like a Russian doll of digressions. Just keep the nesting dolls just keep coming.
A digression doll.
A digression doll, yeah, exactly. I'll be interested to see what happens at the Xbox plus Bethesda game showcase, because they're probably...
It'll be Starfield.
The more and more...
Minecraft.
Oh god. So much Minecraft. I think Starfield will probably be a, big part of it.
Maybe they'll announce Elder Scrolls 6.
I mean, they've announced Elder Scrolls 6, but they've
Maybe
never
they'll give us
shown
some
anything.
stuff. Maybe they'll announce a new game engine.
You think they'll finally get around to
No, I don't
doing
think
another
they will, but it would be a nice surprise.
Yeah, sure would. They've been heavily modifying it all these years. Starfield is supposed to be still working on Creation Engine.
Great.
So
we'll have the same issues that we had in Oblivion.
Probably. They had already announced that it was going to get moved back to 2023. There was some some rumblings that people working on the game were worried that it was going to be the next Cyberpunk 2077 launch. Makes me think that they knew that it wasn't ready to come out at the end of this year. So, something to consider. There is a whole... yeah.
I'm wondering, when is CitizenCon?
Never.
No, they have a convention for Star Citizen.
Oh, they do?
They have the money for it. Why the hell not?
I thought that they would just be using that to make the game. No. They have TennoCon all the time, too, which is for Warframe. And that's free, and that's out. So,
Fair.
CitizenCon, you say? Okay.
Something like that. Watch as it comes up with Citizen Kane.
No, CitizenCon returns. I guess this is a thing. CitizenCon. Oh, okay. CitizenCon 2951. I guess that's when we're gonna get to Star Citizen. Silver $8. Yeah. Okay. October.
Oh, okay.
Apparently
They're trying to
October.
spook us for Halloween.
Yeah, exactly. So that they can announce that 2951 will finally get that.
900 years. Good job.
Yeah.
Sounds about right.
It might be accurate.
By that time, we'll just be doing stuff you could do in Star Citizen.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Real life.
In real life. Then it's just a life sim.
Yeah.
It will be The Sims.
Great.
But
Anyways.
for space. Anyway, so of the gaming companies that are going to be doing their releases, which I'm sure is actually far cheaper for them to do for presentations, are there any games that you are looking forward to getting more information on?
Now that you've mentioned Space Marine 2, curious.
Yeah.
Curious. I played the first one. I thought it was good. It left off on a cliffhanger, so I'm wondering what they'll do for that.
Sure.
I don't really know though. Maybe if Elder Scrolls 6 says information, I'll be curious.
Yeah.
I haven't really had my eye on Starfield at all.
Sure. Yeah, and I still don't even really know what Starfield is supposed to... I mean, I kind of think that it's in the vein of a Fallout or an Elder Scrolls, but they're doing it with space.
Sure, but if I want that, then currently I've got No Man's Sky.
And that's definitely going to be larger than Starfield will ever be. Starfield is...
So I don't know. I don't know what Bethesda could do with Starfield that would make me interested offhand.
I'm sure that it's going to have to be the complexity of the character, customization and the actual storylines. Like if they have places that you can go that are populated with people. I think that there are going to be settlements and stuff where you're actually going to be able to
But I mean, I've got Elite Dangerous and I've got No Man's Sky, which fit 2 different space itches pretty well.
Sure.
And then we've got settings of games like Warhammer 40K that take place in space.
Sure.
And the future, and it's like,
I think,
what are you gonna do? What are you doing to compete with those?
I think that it's more that they're trying to compete with something like a Mass Effect.
I didn't like Mass Effect, so not hard.
Yeah, without the cover-based part.
Oh, okay.
I don't think they're going to do that. But at any rate, Starfield would probably be one of the big ones that I would be interested in. I'm mostly just trying to think, one, what is the PC gaming show going to be? Because there's very light information about it right now. And I think the thing that I'm most interested in is that Netflix Geeked Week.
I'm not interested in that at all.
Well, I just want to know what it is. Like, what are they trying to accomplish?
I'm as interested in that as I am interested in YouTube originals.
Fair enough.
Not.
Yeah. Hey, YouTube originals is how we got Cobra Kai. So, just remember that.
No.
Okay.
Anyways, I guess
talk.
The point of this will be, stay tuned, gamers.
Stay tuned, because this is going to kind of come to fruition throughout this week and into next. And we are going to be looking out for what new games are getting announced. I don't necessarily even care about the ones that we already know about. I'm more interested in what is going to be new properties that we don't know about. And hopefully somewhere along the line, one of these companies will give me something new. And also, the other thing that's worth looking out for are the games that they don't talk about. If I don't hear any word on a few different projects, I'm going to consider them all but dead. And a lot of them are from Ubisoft, so I'm going to be interested to see what Ubisoft does.
No clue.
There are about 30 industry names that are going to be in Summer Game Fest, including Epic Games, Capcom, etc. But there are also going to be a lot of absences, which is why I'm saying, like, Nintendo Direct, EA Play Live, Ubisoft Forward. Maybe because Ubisoft Forward doesn't know if they're making any games anymore. I don't know.
I mean, Nintendo will drop whatever they want when they want. So.
When they want, yeah. And you'll find out when they are good and ready.
Yeah.
Alright. So, I don't know. If you
this
are
has been...
Yeah, if you're looking forward to something coming out in the next year or so, and you're looking for more information, I'd like to know what game you're keeping on your radar. Please let us know in the comments or over on our Discord channel. Alright, next we have a Mechanically Speaking, and Alex, do you know what we're mechanically speaking about today?
Mechanics! I forget, actually, now that you just were gonna say it, now I forget what we're gonna do.
Now we all of a sudden forgot the topic. So, recently I was going through a bunch of, like, the subclass lists for D&D.
I remember now. Yes, go ahead.
And, there's a lot of interesting kinds of, like, backstories to why a lot of these subclasses exist. But I kept thinking to myself, like, okay, the regular, like, non-player characters, like, the people that actually inhabit your world, where would they fall into this? Like, if you decided to create a character that was a bartender, or, was like an archaeologist, was the one I kept thinking about.
Right.
Storekeeper, or just somebody who swept floors, anything. What would they actually be? Because if you have any kind of a player character, you assume that anyone who is an NPC could essentially get statted out that way too. Yes. So yeah, this is what I'm thinking about. Like, what would different professions actually have as classes? Should we even do that, I suppose? But
so I remembered that there's a thing for this, and I think it's from 3.5 for D&D at least.
Sure.
Other games, I'm sure they have other ways that you can do stuff like that. And I think 5e has one too, but I couldn't remember offhand.
Sure.
But so D&D 3.5 had a section of the DMG, I think, where it's for NPCs, And essentially, it comes down to their non-player classes.
Okay.
These are pretty much just for NPCs or not quite up to snuff as like what we would consider a hero class or an adventuring class.
Mm-hmm.
And so I pulled up here the SRD4 NPC classes from 3.5, I believe.
Okay.
And so I have a list of some of the classes that you can find in D&D for non-player characters that don't have traditional class levels.
Okay.
And so, for instance, the first one up on this list is an adept.
Oh.
So I'll read a little bit about this to you.
Sure.
This one goes into, it says some tribal societies or less sophisticated regions don't have the resources to train wizards and clerics, reflecting a lesser knowledge of magic, yet an intriguing combination of arcane and divine skills. The adept serves these cultures as both wise women or holy men and mystical defenders. Adepts can be found in isolated human, elf, dwarf, gnome, and halfling communities, but are most prevalent among bestial, humanoid, and giant species such as orcs, goblins, gnolls, bugbears, and ogres.
Okay.
So the adept, they get a list of their class skills, skill points, because 3.5 had skill points instead of just proficiencies for your skills.
Sure.
And it went into their breakdown for level 1 to 20, for their base attack bonus, fort, ref, will saves, any special things. The adept gets to summon a familiar and gets spells per day, but they get less than, say, your traditional like wizard might get.
Okay.
And even by 20th level, they can only cast 2 5th level spells.
Okay.
As opposed to like a 20th level wizard, which is like, yeah, I'm throwing on like 6th, 9th level spells.
Jeez.
Or whatever they get. But yeah, so it's got like, here it's got their weapon armor proficiency, their spells, their summon familiar, their spell list.
Oh, sure.
And then like religious adept, urban adept. So these guys are your tribal clerics and shamans and things like that.
I see. Okay.
So that's one example. Then you have an aristocrat, which are usually educated, wealthy individuals born into high positions. They're either wealthy or politically influential people in the world, for instance. So it'll give you their skills and all the stuff they get. They don't really have a lot. They're just kind of rich. But it's like, here's kind of just how to stat them out, you know?
Yeah.
Doesn't actually list their hit points on this, which is strange. You'd think you'd have those.
One. They have one hit point.
And then after that, you've got commoner, which if you want someone who's just kind of pushing a broom, common folk from the field, staff the shops, build the homes, and produce the goods in the world around adventurers. They make poor adventurers and should be reserved for everyone who does not qualify for any other class.
Oh, okay.
So
generic class.
Generic. Then you have your archaeologists that you were talking about.
Yeah.
In this SRD in 3.5 terms, they would probably be an expert.
Oh, okay.
Experts operate as crafts folk and professionals in the world.
Oh, okay.
They normally don't have the inclination or training to be adventurers, but they're capable in their own field, skilled blacksmith, astute barrister. Sorry, not barista.
I was like, oh, wow, I actually like this idea.
Canny merchant, educated sage, and the master shipwright would all be experts.
Oh, okay.
The expert could make a PC-worthy class choice, but only for those players willing to create a character focused on something other than traditional adventuring careers.
Okay.
Basically, they're really skilled.
Sure.
There's a mage-right one here, and that's for Eberron, I guess. So,
okay.
It's a magical blacksmith, I guess.
Mm.
And then the last one there is your warrior, which would be, like guards and things like that, probably.
Sure. Okay.
Instead of giving them like fighter levels.
Yeah.
And the difference here, is where a traditional class level, like a fighter or barbarian, is a lot more powerful than even one of these non-player character classes.
Sure.
Where, again, the 20th level adept, still can't even hold a candle to your equally high level mage or wizard or
Sure.
anything else. So
Yeah.
they're capable as far as NPCs go, but they're not like NPCs that are, I am a 5th level barbarian,
Right.
which would actually pose a moderate threat.
Sure.
But it's like, I'm a 5th level warrior. It's like, cool, you're like a 2nd level character to me.
Right. As far as I know, I haven't seen anything about that for 5th level, 5th rules.
I did try to Google it really quick because I don't have my DMG is over there serving as backdrop.
Yeah, sure.
But I think there is stuff for commoners and stuff in there. I know in the module I've been playing with you guys, your NPCs that are named do have some stat blocks I can see.
Okay.
And I don't remember what they are. If
Sure.
they have a class or if they're just a person.
Sure.
But yeah, like you can do stuff like that. If you want to build a specific, like a really specific NPC and give them a normal class level, like maybe you want to make a rogue a really interesting character.
Sure.
But I feel like the NPC classes here are generally what you would outline with for maybe less interesting, more generic NPCs,
Sure.
but like to give them a stat block on the fly, where it's
Mhm.
like, yeah, you're fighting an archaeologist with a whip. It's like, oh shit, what do I want to use for that stat block? It's like,
Right.
well, do I want to go through the effort of, say, giving them a class level in,
Sure.
say, rogue, and then you
Yeah.
have to figure out all the class features for it? Or do I want to give them like 5th level expert, so they get 3 attack bonus, their fortitude saving throw is like one reflex and 4 will, and they've proficient in their armor and shields, their light armor and simple weapons, you know?
Sure.
Like here's some stuff they have really quick without going into crazy detail.
Got it.
So I think stuff like that is really nice if you need some on the fly NPC generation. Like, oh shit, like I have a guard.
Yeah.
It's like, is it a fighter or is it something else? Or is like, does guard have its own stat block? It's like, guard does not. Sorry, you know, he's elf. He's an orc guard. He's a level 3 warrior.
Sure.
You know, something like that. It's designed, I think, to be simple
Yeah.
and make them have a bit more flavor than just like generic NPC, but also not be, here, make an entire character sheet for this NPC, because that's annoying.
Certainly. Yeah. Well, you know what they need to do is they need to have like an NPC generator, but do it like those magnet poems, so that you can like throw little stat things on.
I mean,
on,
there are
like, a
definitely
magnet board.
generators online for that
Sure.
that you can find, which are pretty easy, but
Yeah.
just stuff like this is also really simple. I think it can be handy.
Sure. Now, here's the big thing, though, that I was kind of spawned the whole question for me.
Sure, sorry, I went on a tirade there.
No, but it's good to know that in 3.5 they might have actually thought of something like this. But imagine if we're in that world and you have that character who happens to be the archaeologist who has the whip and everything, and somebody joins the game and they kind of go, oh, hey, that NPC was really cool. I think I actually might want to play that character.
Well,
Now-
then you tell them to get an idea for a better character that's not an NPC.
Yeah, but my thought process is, okay, so let's say you have somebody who did the archaeology thing and they're out there dusting bones. They're like the characters at the beginning of Jurassic Park, right? They're out there dusting the bones off and scaring kids with the claw. And, okay, so now when I'm trying to figure out what makes the most sense for them, what do I think that they would actually be? Am I thinking that because they're more of a scholar that they would make sense as like a wizard? Or am I thinking that if they're athletic, would they make more sense as something like a rogue, maybe? Like if it was like an inquisitive sort of character?
I think it would
kind of
just
thing?
I think what you'd more focus on necessarily was your background.
Yeah.
In that case, in 5e, again, as the example we're using here,
Mm,
where your background, say maybe you are a scholar as a background,
mm,
but it's like, all right, well, do I use magic or do I use brains, or maybe I use divine stuff?
Sure.
Would you pick whatnot? Maybe
Yeah.
you're good at tracking these animals down or these creatures down. So you'd be like, I want to
Right.
play a ranger who's actually just good at like that stuff, knowledge,
Right.
nature. I think you break it down based on like build the concept with your background and then pick what class might fit best.
Sure. Because I think that what makes me wonder if that was rules as intended is that usually the backgrounds are something you pick after you've already picked your, like, class.
And you don't have to do it that way, of course. You can go and say, all right, well, I want to do my background and stuff first and then pick my class. Because then it's like, again, build out the concept and then fit your class to the concept to be like, okay, so I'm an archaeologist. I'm going with scholar background. I'm going with these different like ideals, bonds, flaws, traits, etc. Then pick your race, and then maybe pick the class from that.
Sure.
You can do it backwards. It's a little different because then you're like, all right, well, I also think you should do backgrounds first because you get a lot of skills from the background.
Yeah, you get some
For
good stuff from
instance,
backgrounds, yeah.
And I think if you do it that way, you go, all right, I've got these skills, and then I get all the class things, and you can choose from the class things after you've done that. And it helps you from going back and looking at it going, wait, did I have this or that? Because there's a lot of options.
Oh, sure. Sure.
I think for, like, if you're doing an Indiana Jones type character,
Sure.
it might be a rogue. You
Yeah.
specialize in skills, more so skills, less so, murder.
Yeah, which is why I'm thinking that probably something like an inquisitive model would have made more sense for that, where you're good at perception and stuff.
Or maybe you're an archaeologist who also likes to raise the dead.
At which point you'd probably want to be maybe a cleric.
Right. Maybe you are a cleric who is also a paleontologist.
Yeah.
So you research them and you animate the skeleton and then you get it to a museum and you just put it in the position you want and then you release it and you just keep it there.
Right.
Maybe you find a way to do that. Maybe you can, I don't know if there's a spell commune with undead. I know there's speak with animals.
Yeah, speak with animals.
Actually,
like
I think there is a spell.
Oh, I think there is a speak with the dead too.
Yeah, lets you speak with it. So maybe you could learn about, maybe you could be like, all right, I'm a cleric who wants to find out more about these dead creatures and like learn about them by communing with them. I don't know. Interesting concept. Could be fun.
Yeah. I think it's like in the other realm of this, I kept thinking to myself, like, what leads characters to say, man, I guess I'm a sorcerer now? Like, what was the backstory that led you there? I can't imagine that it's just all people that are like, well, I have magical abilities, I guess I'll just go into this profession now. Like, I have to imagine that they did something beforehand that led them to the point where it made sense for them to go into that.
Yeah, I mean, sorcerer as an example obviously is interesting because if you're playing a sorcerer, it means your bloodline is where you get your magic power from.
Sure.
So you're born with that ability, which also would be interesting to have someone with a sorceress bloodline that is playing a different class.
Yeah.
Maybe, so in that case, what you might do as a character concept, I know it's not completely on an NPC point, it's fine, we're tangential, it works.
Right.
Maybe what you do is you do a first level sorcerer, and then your second level is in another class.
Got it.
So it's like, maybe I have a little bit of innate sorceress ability, but like maybe I didn't really, that's not what I'm doing with my life.
Right. That's
maybe
not really a thing.
Maybe I'm a fighter who actually just has a sorcerer's bloodline.
It would be interesting, actually, if you started off all of these characters with a class level that made sense for them, and then, based on their backstory, took them in a different direction entirely. So, like,
Yeah.
their first level is different entirely from the rest of the levels that they take. So,
Well, yeah, that's always interesting. Multi-classing can present a plethora of fun opportunities
sure.
and background stuff as well. For instance, Hephaestus, we've gone over before on the show and on the old show, where he was a Dragonborn druid. But based on character backgrounds and what we decided for him, and then stuff throughout the storyline, I was like, well, maybe he's gonna go barbarian.
Mm-hmm.
Because just like you, he gets red like his rage. You are very red right now.
I am so red. Why am I red now? Stop being red. I don't know.
I assume it's a web page you have up.
Maybe. 1 second. I'm gonna see if I can stop being red.
Nathan just turned red.
There.
Hey, there you go. I don't know what you did.
I don't know.
Anyways, welcome back to not being so angry.
I was in
Yes,
rage mode. That's how I became a barbarian.
Well, yeah, it's one of those things. It's like, all right, well, maybe there's. I think actually an interesting way to do that could be, say, make a character concept and then pick a class feature
Mm-hmm.
that is based on your experiences beforehand, but not the class you want to play. So maybe you want to play a sorceress bloodline and get the bloodline trait, but play a ranger.
Oh, okay.
Or play a fighter. So that would be an interesting, albeit maybe powerful way to augment a character in a different way than just, say, giving them a different class level.
Sure.
You know?
Sure. Okay. That's worthwhile.
Could be interesting. So then I could be like, all right, Nathan, you are playing a bard, but you've got you're from a nomadic tribe of barbarians.
Got it.
Yeah, maybe you've got the class rage feature as if you are a barbarian.
That seems OP.
I mean, you can't cast spells when you're raging, so
maybe I can.
Maybe. No, you can't. Rage doesn't let you cast spells.
Maybe mine does.
No. Anyways, so I think there's definitely ways you can do that. Obviously, talk to your games master or your dungeon master about ways you can tweak things like that. For instance, Hephaestus turned out to be a lycanthrope.
There's that.
It's not something I came up with during character creation. We came up with it through playing the character, but we talked it out and figured out what it would be like and how it could tie into the story. And it was like, all right, cool. He's a lycanthrope, but I'm not going to abuse it because holy shit, lycanthropes are powerful.
Yeah.
Stuff like that is interesting. Fun character concepts are always really interesting to go with, even if it makes them a bit more powerful. I think with a good player who isn't going to abuse the shit out of that, it's fine. And even then, if they do abuse the crap out of it, it's like you can pull them aside and just be like, hey, you're kind of using that one thing a little bit heavily, like for reasons that the story doesn't necessarily warrant it, perhaps. Just solid communication, I think, works for that. So
fair enough. I have also gone back into rage mode, so I'm just staying in rage forever. It's fine.
Red like my rage.
I keep wondering that, like, who comes in, like, to say, hey, you know what? I really need to be, like, a barbarian as a class. Like, unless you're, like, actually of a tribe that qualifies for it. I don't know who thinks to themselves, well, I happen to be a bartender, and that makes me particularly angry, and I like to throw punches, so I'm going to be a barbarian as a class.
We could go into barbarian as a class thing sometime if we wanted to, but, like, maybe you're just a fighter who's pretty angry.
You're just an angry fighter.
Like, you don't have to play a tribal barbarian.
Sure.
You could, say, be a city-dwelling member who's a barbarian class. Basically, you're a rage fighter.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm just kind of... I wear lighter armor, and I use big weapons, and I just get really mad and smash things.
You're the Hulk. You are just the Hulk.
Every time you rage, your clothing rips off.
Oh my! And you turn green.
Yeah, and you turn green with envy, or like you, red, like my rage.
Red, like your rage. Yeah, maybe you're a half orc, and you just get greener when you turn into.
Maybe you're a dwarf, and every time you drink, you rage.
That's true. That's true. I like this. You could be a half orc and a half dwarf.
No, that's
yes,
weird, and they hate each other.
Which is why it would be amazing. At some point, we'll talk. There is actually supplements that they did. I want to say it was an elf and an orc had a little baby or something, which was
Sure.
Where you can actually just choose different parental heritages for your character.
Yeah.
But at any rate, so question that I'd like to ask to everybody else is: have you ever thought about the idea of an NPC getting a backstory for them and what they might actually be if they were a class? And it doesn't have to be limited to just D&D, obviously. If there's another system that you use, maybe in Vampire the Masquerade, try to figure out what clan you would want to belong to if you ended up being an actual barista instead of a barrister. If you were a barista in that world, what clan would you be? Probably Brewhut, but the point is...
a barista of blood.
No, you know what? No, be a Toreador, wouldn't it?
I don't know.
It would be a Toreador. Finally on the show, we have a Delving Deeper. And, Alex, what are we going to be delving deeper into?
Things, stuff, caves... ideas, an episode, and I believe. Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
It's one of those things, yes. But at what one of those things are we actually?
All of them. We were gonna dive into a topic brought to us by our lovely brand designer and creatures creator, Crave, Craveyard, perhaps if you've seen them on our Discord hanging out occasionally. Anyways, they prompted the idea of what brings us back to games.
Yes, and I think this is a good one for us because there are a handful of games that you and I have been back to several times. Ones that I could have probably gone right back into immediately and would have no reservations about doing so.
Sure.
Those would include ones like Fallout New Vegas, for instance.
Or KOTOR.
KOTOR, yeah.
For you.
I could load up KOTOR tomorrow and be perfectly happy with it. I don't know which ones for you would really count.
Oh, there's a ton. For instance, I could go back and play Warhammer 40k Dawn of War 2, Retribution.
Oh, okay.
Inquisitor Martyr, I went back to the other day. I wanted to see if they updated stuff and whatnot. Skyrim, I can go back to anytime just it's to fuck around in.
Yeah, sure.
But I think just games specifically isn't the point here. I think it's like, why do we do this?
Yeah. So I think in order to talk about that, we'd have to kind of get to the heart of the reason why we
the cards.
What?
The heart of the cards, Yuki.
No, it's not the heart of the cards. I'm not.
Anyways.
No, that explains why people go back to play The Witcher 3 because of Gwent.
Yes.
But I would be more interested in like the actual heart of the game that we engage with, because I think that kind of explains the whole thing. I think one of the big characteristics is that it has to be a game that can constantly surprise you. I think that you have to have games that will allow you to go through scenarios in different ways or open up ideas that you want to explore in a different way.
I think on the contrary, it doesn't have to surprise you. I think sometimes it's a sense of familiarity.
Okay, yeah.
Which is one of the things that I think they've done a little bit of research on, for instance, is with like rewatching shows you've seen before is a really good catharsis for people.
Yeah, yeah. So
It's nice and relaxing for you because you've seen it, you know what's gonna happen. You don't have to think about what to expect, and you can just be like, it's like rereading a book that you've read and you love. It's like when I go back to reread The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, it's like I've read this book multiple times. And it's like, I know what happens. I may not remember every little detail, but it's a sense of familiarity and enjoyment from something you've experienced before. I had a friend of mine who watched Burn Notice.
Oh, yeah.
And it was a comfort show for them.
Yeah.
So like I'd go over occasionally, we'd have tea and just watch Burn Notice. And it was just nice. It was relaxing. It was cozy.
Yeah. Getting your Michael Weston on.
Yep.
So you can find
getting your Sam in.
You got to get some Sam Axe in your life and some Fiona blowing stuff up. That's always good.
But it was just like, this is a show I enjoy. It's catharsis. So for where you said surprising you, that is also really good for games. To be able to keep coming back. Like maybe you want to play Fallout and it's like maybe you're gonna try something different and you go somewhere else that you've never been to again. You just get surprised by the dialogue. It's something that happens. But I think the sense of familiarity can also be really good for a lot of these games too.
I don't think that they're necessarily mutually exclusive, because you can have game worlds that are familiar to you, but in aspects that you never experienced before. So, like, take Kingdoms of Amalur is probably a good example for this, because that's one we both went back to. I think that we go back to it because you're very familiar with the world from the very first time that you get into it. But you don't really do the same things every single time, and you might go to different areas.
Sometimes you do the same build every time.
I keep doing the same build every single time, but it doesn't necessarily mean that I try the same things all the time.
Right.
Yeah. But I think the concept of, going back to things that are familiar to you. Have you ever heard of a concept called comfort movies or comfort food?
Yeah, it's I think the same concept I was saying with the shows being comfort.
Sure.
Familiarity. It's easy. It doesn't take a lot of brain power for you to enjoy it.
Sure.
You know, so you either watch it or you eat it because it's just comfortable.
In some ways, that also explains the actual pick up and play nature of games that you're actually familiar with. Because when I start a new game, one of the things that will keep me from playing too long or jumping off of it fast is if it feels too obtuse at the start. If I don't really engage with it, and they have to explain a lot about those games too.
Oh yeah, there's two different extremes there, and we talked about that in the last one where like Farming Sim.
Yeah.
Where you're like, it didn't explain anything to me really, and just kind of dropped you in expecting you to know everything. That's one extreme.
Right.
And then there's a game. Well, I guess that's on the same extreme. I was gonna say Elite Dangerous, but then there's another extreme where it explains way too much.
Yeah.
Like, here's everything that you need to know all at once, but it's like, just let me get into the game. And like, I know, like, I don't know if you tried New World ever.
No, I didn't.
But the tutorial was very linear. It took about 15 minutes total, and it just was like, here's how to move, here's how to attack, dodge, roll, here's how to jump, here's the basic gameplay core, like how to do things, and then go. And everything else got explained later. One of the few things I think they did right.
Right, yeah. Gameplay loops are going to be really important in that too, especially when they, intersect with each other, because I think that means that you're going to get kind of interesting experiences seeing that. Borderlands is that for me, because I can see the actual leveling RPG systems and also like the looting system that comes into it like consequentially. And so it always feels a little bit different, even though, I understand the rules of it. There's some consistency, and then there's also some difference that always happens, the random nature of it.
Yeah.
So I do like that. It causes me to come back because I don't know what I'm going to get. Even though I understand it right up at the start.
Right, and I actually enjoy that looting aspect as well as something. For instance, with Warhammer 40k Retribution, or Dawn of War Retribution 2.
Yeah.
or whatever it is, Dawn of War 2 Retribution, word salad, is, I can play the same game differently each time, but like it's still the same. It's still the same missions, still the same plot, characters, everything. But I can play with them differently. Between the 6 armies you can play as, you can play either with all commanders or all elite units instead, and replace those commanding units. And have a bigger army, and you can change out their skills and their loadouts to play a vastly different game. So I could do like, oh, well, I'm just going to do an all ranged build for my army. Or maybe I'll be all melee. Or maybe I'll just be like one commanding unit and then massive amount of like, troops instead. So there's ways you can do that. And then Inquisitor Martyr is just, there's the sheer amount of ways you can customize your character and their equipment. So there's a lot. Customization, I think, is also a big thing for me.
Yeah.
We're having a lot of customization, but not so much that it's like the skill tree. I think in Path of Exile, I think has that massive tree that's just daunting.
I see.
But if you kind of like get people into it slowly and it's not overwhelming, it's okay.
Yeah, I mean, I'm thinking one of the examples that I would use is something like a Diablo 2.
Well,
to try and
Inquisitor Martyr, Diablo 2.
Yeah, I know they're hack and slashers, but
no. I just mean they're very similar in execution on how customizable it can be, which is really nice.
Right. But in terms of the striking a balance between the familiarity and also the ability to customize, to change, customize your experience. Diablo is a good example of that. Every time I play a Diablo 2, 3, whatever, I know how the story runs. I know the areas I'm going to go to. I know the acts, the chapters. I know the bosses that are going to fight. But that doesn't mean that I want to play the same character every single time. And so you can create a situation, and I feel like this is kind of where you get the games that you keep returning to after you've played them for a long period of time, is striking that balance between getting a variety in and also the familiarity of a game that you understand the rules to.
Another example for me is like World of Warcraft. I go back to fairly often. I haven't played it in several months now, but generally, I enjoy the gameplay and the story and the storytelling, and so it's comfortable, and I can do it by myself or with friends, and it's like I go back to it because I enjoy it, and there's things in it I can do even without doing like newest content if I want, where it's like maybe I just want to go fishing for 5 hours in World of Warcraft. I mean, it's something you can do, and it's really just relaxing.
Oh yeah.
Or maybe you want to go do it. There are a lot of reasons people come back to games again and again. And another offshoot of this, for instance, is like tabletop, Nathan, where it's not necessarily the same thing as video games, but like what drives you to keep playing D&D instead of branching out to another, TTRPG system, for instance. And I think perhaps for a lot of people, it could be the familiarity with the system and the brand in like D20 system is it doesn't take a lot to learn. Once you learn it, it doesn't take a lot to relearn a new edition necessarily. It's like, okay, it's still the same core, but then you have to just kind of figure it out. But then you have people who go and learn new games.
Sure.
And they're like, okay, it's a process to learn a new game. It's a time investment to learn a new game.
Sure.
I was telling you the other day when you were here that I have the PDFs for the Avatar Legends role-playing game.
Sure.
And I'm hoping to get the physical book eventually whenever they are done printing and sending them. But I've never played Powered by the Apocalypse.
Sure.
And so learning that is going to be a time investment And, it's time sink as well because it's like, all right, well, now I need to read a rule book.
Yeah.
And 300-page rule book is a bit daunting.
Oh, and it can be, yeah.
Can be overwhelming, but it's like learning that can be fun. So in the case of why would I go to learn this instead of just sticking to D&D, it's because, well, they're offering me a setting specifically and a set of rules and that gameplay experience instead of something that's D&D, just generic D&D, or my own world. This is a IP from, a big world that exists that people might be familiar with. I know Crave is familiar with Avatar and likes Avatar, so one of the reasons we got that is because, well, this would be a cool way to, like, do some role-playing in a world that is really interesting as well. So I think what this comes back to is, why do we come back to games that we've already played again and again? And I think it's because we're comfortable with them.
I like the other part of that, though, is that things aren't always the same. Like,
right.
I keep thinking about this, and I was looking through spell lists the other day because I'm playing a spellcaster now in D&D. I kept finding that the spells that I really, really like, that I keep trying to take, are sort of, they have a lot of functionality and variety. You can use them in a lot of different ways and creative ways. So
right.
you get to play around with, how could I utilize this? I wonder if I could, use this in a certain way. And what you've essentially done is created a thing where it's like, well, now I got to build a character that uses these kinds of skills or these kinds of abilities. And I want to do that. Same thing, too, with like a lot of RPGs, because we talked about that is, well, obviously I'd like to see what a dark side Jedi looks like and how that changes my gameplay now that I'm familiar with what it is this one way. Maybe I want to be a long-range sniper in New Vegas instead of being a brawler, or I actually want to be a brawler for the first time ever and try punching people with the shotgun fist or something like that. There's functional mechanical changes that can take place. Now on the opposite end of that, though, we can also learn a lot from the games that maybe we played really heavily that we never went back to. And
like you played for a short duration,
or played all the way through but have no interest of actually going back to.
Okay.
Yeah. And there is one that I probably will never pick back up, even though I can tell you that it's an excellent game and it's legendary and it's narratively brilliant.
Is it Greedfall?
No, it's not Greedfall. No. I did try to go back to Greedfall a couple times, but something just wasn't hitting for me. I guess in those systems that I just never felt quite comfortable with the way that it was presented. But it was Spec Ops The Line, which you might have heard of at some point. So Spec Ops The Line, when it originally came out, I did play that right through from beginning to end. That is how I played it, straight through from beginning to end. Not a particularly long game, mind you. It's probably only about 4 or 5 hours. It's not a very long game, but an incredibly good game with a great narrative structure and very interesting character development as it goes through, where there's a lot of those big, like, reveal moments where you realize that you may be the monster and possibly the villain of the story. Like, there's a lot of those, what have I done? There's been a terrible thing, and dealing with that. The thing about it is that narrative goes through, you get to the end, there's like the last of 3 or 4 really big reveals. You go through that and you're like, wow, that was something else. And then you have to make a decision at the end about how you want to wrap that up. The thing about it is that when I went back, right after that, like, to try and play again, because I knew how all of that was going to run, and you're pretty much doing the same, because the actual game is just cover-based shooting for the most part.
Yeah.
When I started doing that, it's like, well, now I know why this is happening, which is neat. But I don't really want to run through that story again. Like, I want to just live with that story and not go back and re-experience it. I don't have that same relationship with that game. Because I don't think it was even made to be that kind of a game. And might be the reason why it never really got sequels or anything, because people don't interact with that in the same way. And actually, even in that regard, I'll tell you that I will always say I love Nier Automata, but I don't know if I want to go back to Nier Automata now that I've finished it. Like, I don't know if I want to run through that storyline again, because it felt so satisfying to come to the conclusion of that.
Right. An example of something to get away from that as well, where we were talking about Diablo. It's like Diablo 3. How many times have you played? You have Diablo 3 as well, right?
I've played Diablo 3, yeah.
So once they added in the adventure mode, the bounties and the challenge rifts and stuff, it's like, all right, well, you kind of only just play the story once. And then after that, everything is seasons. You know, you just do the seasonal stuff, and what you do for seasonal stuff generally is, all right, hopping into adventure mode, not doing anything that's storyline, just doing bounties and
sure,
you know, rifts and greater rifts and that stuff.
So, let me think
here.
It's
you just skip the entire storyline of the game and just play the game.
Right, exactly.
You know, and I think that is actually a good way to do something like that, whereas Inquisitor Martyr, which is on the same type of game, they have seasons now as well, but there's no way to skip the story.
Yeah.
You can skip the couple intro missions. You can just, you've done this before. Do you want to skip the tutorial missions? It's like, yes, I do. But I would also like to not have the main storyline be something I need to do. Like, give me an adventure mode where I can just do missions and, like, bounties and things like that.
Sure.
Because having to go through that story again is terrible. It's so boring.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I understand.
I don't want to go through these story missions again.
Yeah.
Give me something better.
Yeah.
And I've actually told them that.
Yeah. Diablo 3, I think I had played the once to the end, and then I did try it again when like Reaper of Souls came out, and so I could play the additional content with a different character.
Sure.
One that I find really interesting that I actually have a hard time going back to, even though it seems like the kind of thing you'd want to screw around with, is almost every single Ubisoft game. Like, I'll play the Ubisoft title. I'll play any Assassin's Creed you give me. I'll play, like, any Far Cry game you give me. Any of them. Watch Dogs, you name it. But usually once I'm done playing it, I will put it down and have little interest in picking it back up or starting it again.
I feel that. Yeah. I've gotten several of the Assassin's Creed
Cream. Applied directly to the dagger.
I did pick up like Far Cry Primal, I think, and I picked up Watch Dogs Legion and stuff when they're all on sale, you know. It's like, all right, and like I enjoy them. You know, I got Valhalla, and it's like, all right, this is fun. And then I put it down, and it's like,
yeah, because you know exactly what you're going to do when you get back into it. And
and again, I think we talked about this before with Cyberpunk, and for instance, it's like, Cyberpunk's really fun now. And I think they do the formula that Ubisoft did better than Ubisoft did.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Now I actually go to Cyberpunk, and I will mess around just a little bit. What I did find is that I won't stay in it too long, because I think I have finished like every notable piece of content for the character, and I might though go back and try a different character build if I wanted to run through the story. But yeah, Ubisoft is a hard one, I think, just because once they kind of establish the few game mechanics and the things that they're going to do in the game, you realize you're going to do those over and over again. The one that I was willing to go back to was, I did get the Ezio collection. So that would be 2, Brotherhood, and Revelations. And I have to say that those games, maybe just because of the narrative structure and seeing the characters and, doing all of the side missions and stuff, work pretty well for multiple playthroughs. But you have to be kind of invested because people liked Ezio, so it's one of those things. The rest of them, it's hit or miss. It's very hit or miss because they don't necessarily lend themselves to the kinds of mechanics that you want to keep coming back to, or the storylines that you have a deep interest of experiencing in another way, or, in a remix. That's kind of what it is, too, isn't it? It's the idea that you remix what you've done in a new and interesting way. I choose a different character class this time. I choose a different build this time. I go in this other direction. It's still the game. I know the game, but I've changed aspects of it. I'm trying to experience it in a slightly different way. So it's that familiarity mixed with the variety and how those two can come together in new and interesting ways. But games kind of have to lend themselves to be that sort of game, and I don't know if every one of them wants to be. I think I will have trouble going back to a lot of shooters for that very reason, especially episodic ones. Sometimes the big open world games will just be that. They'll be big open world games, and you screw around with them, and then you're done. You jump off of them. But then again, Stardew Valley. I will make my ancient fruit production, my wine production every single time, and I will keep enjoying trying it.
Yeah, I think when it comes down to it, I think a sense of familiarity, a sense of something that can surprise you or interest you each time you play, and then a core gameplay loop that you enjoy. I think I would call those like the three main factors of why we particularly might come back to games.
Sure.
Obviously, there can be specific keys other people enjoy, but for us, I think familiarity, intrigue, that's what I'm going to call that, and then a core gameplay loop that is just enjoyable every time you pick it up.
Yeah. In order to get me excited to begin with, that core gameplay loop has to be accessible enough that I want to get into it, but I think complex enough that I keep going back and trying to dig into what that is.
And I think that's why you and I have slightly different play styles for games, where I enjoy the simulator games a bit more, I think.
Sure.
And I don't think you enjoy them quite nearly as much as I do, for instance, Farming Sim, but we'll see. We're going to find out.
We're gonna
in the past, from when this episode airs in the past, we will have found out if learning how to play a game a little bit better might make you enjoy it a bit more. But I feel like you're still gonna be like, okay, well, this is better, but it probably won't stick around a while. So we'll see.
I don't know if it's my particular cup of tea. But then again, sim games are kind of like all over the place. At some point, maybe we'll do a thing about how the simulator family, about everything being a simulator. It is like you can practically categorize those into like three different categories of like the ones that are actually trying to be realistic, the ones that are kind of trying to be silly, and then the ones that are just ridiculous in the first place, and how you interact with them very, very differently. But at any rate, I think mostly that it's, if a game really grabs you from the start and you can see the possibilities of how you'd like to play or what you'd like to do, that feeling almost of, what if I had done this? What if I had tried this? That question mark that's in your head about that game that you remember playing, I think that draws you back. It's that whole aspect, like those three that you were mentioning a second ago. Those lead you back to it over and over again. But I suppose we should just ask the audience if there are any games that you get drawn back to,
or any concepts.
Yeah. One, what kinds of mechanics and design choices do games make that lead you to come back to them? And also, do you have examples in your own life of those kinds of games? Because I know everybody's a little bit different, but I am wondering if there's ones that are that have a higher hit ratio of return shots. That's a sport reference, isn't it?
I have no idea.
Cool.
Making another left-hand turn.
Yep. There's an E. One more E in left. Alex, if the folks out there wanted to learn more about Total Pebble Knockdown, where could they go?
If you would like to learn more about what we do here and find some of the other stuff we do, please head on over to TotalPebbleKnockdown.com.
When you are there, you can even click on our Patreon banner and find early releases of pretty much everything that we do, including full-length video versions of these episodes. That's always a lot of fun. You can hear even the open ramblings that we do, or as we like to call it, the premium content. That's always
Or
good
in
stuff.
today's instance,
today's
special content, because we're probably going to release it later.
Yeah. Some extra special content for you. Extra special. EVS. Extra very special. We're gonna
EVs,
VSP. Very special
VSOP.
pebbles. Very special pebbles.
Anyways.
VSOP. That's what I was trying to get to. Anyway,
Yes.
Thank you for joining us on the show. You can also find us on every single podcast app known to mankind, including Anchor. If you're over there, feel free to leave a video. Damn it. I always want to say it's a video.
They have videos up there now.
They do?
You can do video podcasts on Anchor.
You can do a video podcast? You can probably...
Yeah.
I don't think you can do a video message, though.
I don't know. In lieu of
Find
leaving us a
out.
video message that you can't do, we would love it if you're listening. Please leave a rate and review wherever you listen to our fine podcast, or just share it with a friend, or share it with people you're not friends with but want to make suffer.
Yeah, this is the podcast for people to suffer through. I think we need to rebrand so that we
I
make
think it's
that
on point, yes.
Yeah. Making people suffer at the crossroads of digital and analog. There's a Total Pebble Knockdown.
At the crossroads of suffering and enjoyment,
Yeah.
there's a Total Pebble Knockdown.
at the crossroads of pain and pleasure is TPK.
That's a different crossroads we're not going to enter.
Oh yeah, S&M and TPK.
Wow.
You can also find us on social media where we will not be talking about S&M and TPK.
You don't know what I talk about on my social media.
Yeah, and I'm gonna keep it that way. I am at Titanium.
I am at EXP Limited, and our show is at Pebble Knockdown. Like, follow, subscribe, share with friends. Let me know if you want a keychain or a
Yep.
sticker.
The keychains, always great. Always great. Stickers, we do have stickers.
Lots of stickers.
They might actually be of Total Pebble Knockdown. We don't really know.
Who knows?
They might be random stickers.
They might be randoms. They might be a winter wolf.
They might be a winter wolf, yeah. Let us know. Which we need to at some point we'll put up a couple different stickers and we'll have people vote on which one they like more.
It's the winter wolf, obviously.
Well, yeah. That's kind of a no-brainer. We'll just stack the deck for that one. It's fine. Thank you for joining us on this episode of Total Pebble Knockdown. Now sticker and keychain approved.
I was going to go with thanks for listening to Total Pebble Knockdown, and hopefully our core podcast loop will keep you coming back for more.
Oh, yeah. This is the best podcast loop. One you can never escape. Thank you for joining us. We'll talk to you next time. Goodbye for now.
Bye.